talk about something most people don't want to be talking about. And what is that? Constipation. You know, those really awkward toilet moments when you feel like you're going through labor pains or just struggling for your life. Or perhaps it could be just a complete lack of these bowel movements. Now, you're not alone if you're struggling with something like this. There are so many people that struggle with constipation today. It's the feelings of feeling bloated, feeling backed up, and just not able to have a good you know what. And before you go out there and reach for a laxative or a fiber bar, you may want to watch this video because I'm going to share some of the unconventional tips to help you with constipation. And these are natural tips. Many of these don't even require you to spend any money on any products or anything out there that is labeled to give you a temporary solution to these constipation, because oftentimes when people suffer from constipation, it's a long-term problem and something that you may be struggling for many years with. But let's dive into these unconventional tips today. Welcome to another episode of Navigating Wellness. Now, many of you may already know that constipation is associated with a sluggish digestive system or compromised digestive system, and that is often leading to many people suffering with constipation. And it's often a long-term process to try and heal the digestive system to let it function more optimally. And once that is done, then your bowel movements tend to improve and you address the constipation. But in today's video, I want to dive into those sneaky daily habits that are just making things so much worse for you from a constipation perspective, and what are some of the things that you can incorporate within your daily life that can help alleviate it as you're going through this process of healing your digestion. So without further ado, let's dive right in. I'm going to be breaking it down. 3 things that are contributing to these symptoms of constipation. Then I'm going to get into 3 tips that you can incorporate in your daily life to help you address these symptoms of constipation. So starting off with number 1 is what I call the water thieves. What do I mean by water thieves? These are foods that suck all the hydration out of your body. Now, these are foods that I generally love a lot. Things like baked goods, yes, rotis, chapatis, naans, breads, pastries, crackers, things that are very dry in nature. These are your foods that generally aggravate your vata condition. They suck a lot of the hydration and water. Think about it like a dry, overcooked sponge in a desert. It's just gonna suck all the liquid content that it can find. These are the types of foods that generally soak up a ton of water. Think about it like this. When you cook grains, generally you have to add a lot of water because they end up sucking in a lot of the water in order to expand and cook. Now, when we consume things like flours, grains, they end up doing that very same thing within our body. They suck all the hydration out of the body. Now think of your gut as something like a slip and slide. If you take sand and you throw it all over the slip and slide, what do you think is going to happen? You're not going to be moving anywhere. And that is exactly what is taking place when we consume these baked goods in excess amounts. They end up becoming like a stuck slip and slide. Now, if you want to alleviate this condition, you want to try and avoid these types of food. Try and limit the intakes of these flours, baked goods, because you want to try and increase the hydration in your body so that things can move along and that you're not having these excessive amounts of dryness within the body. So that is tip number 1. Let's move on to tip number 2. 2 is a food that many people will think is the ultimate health food, but it's not actually your gut's best friend. And this food is something that I was told that I should be consuming more of in order to address my constipation, but it made things so much worse, and that is raw salads. Raw salads, especially things like kale and those leafy green vegetables, yes, they may be super healthy for a lot of people, but for some people that suffer with constipation, it's going to make your symptoms so much worse. That is why I often don't consume these dark leafy vegetables in their raw form, because they will lead to the aggravation of your constipation symptoms. Now, why is it so bad? A lot of these raw salads contain insoluble fibers, meaning they're not going to be absorbing and they don't have a lot of their own rich water content. There's very little water content within these vegetables and leafy greens. And that is why when we consume these foods, they tend to be like, it's almost like throwing stones in a block drain. And they make the constipation so much worse because there isn't enough water content to help move these things along. That is why many people end up doing things like drizzling oils over their salads, which if you watch my video on refined oils or any oils, is generally something you want to avoid. And the same goes for raw salads. If your digestion is compromised, this is something you generally want to avoid. If you must eat these foods, it's better to give them a light steam so that they're much more easier on your digestive system and they can be better hydrated when you steam them, because they get a lot of the water content from the steam and it's already partially broken down, so it flows much more easier through your body. But I'm going to share with you some tips at the end that can hopefully help to address a lot of the problem while still getting you a lot of the nutrient content that you need from these vegetables, in case you're wondering about the heating process destroying a lot of the nutrients within these foods. Let's jump into number 3. 3 is probably something that is also going to hurt real bad, and that is these sneaky dehydrating foods. And what am I talking about? One of the most common drinks, foods that are consumed out there, the one that so many people really love, and that is chocolates and coffee. Now, many people may think that coffee and chocolates are actually helpful for your digestion and perhaps stimulate your bowel movements. However, these are sneaky ones, because yes, they do stimulate the contraction of your abdominal muscles because they are stimulants, and they may give you this feeling like as if it's helping you with your constipation symptoms. However, coffee and chocolate tend to dehydrate you on a cellular level in the long term. And when this happens, you may not see the effects immediately, but over a long term, you start to feel very dehydrated on a cellular level, and it contributes to the symptoms of constipation because your digestion gets compromised. And so these foods, while they may make you feel nice and good in the short term and may make you think that they are helping to alleviate your symptoms of constipation, may actually be doing more harm. It's kind of like thinking about it this way. Imagine you invite somebody to come clean your house, and they come in, they clean your house and everything looks nice and sparkly clean, but meanwhile, they damaged your plumbing system and they probably stole a whole lot of water from your house. And now when you try and realize over a period of time, wait, my plumbing is actually breaking down, this is the reason why. You may not notice the effects on the surface, but it's having these long-term detrimental effects. So something you want to be mindful of if you want to try and address the problem with constipation. With that, let's dive into the tips, because I know this part is probably the part that's going to also have quite a profound effect, because these are things that I personally use to help me address these symptoms of constipation. Someone who had a compromised digestive system, probably still recovering from a compromised digestive system, but I find these to be really effective, and they're all natural. None of them are supplements or anything like that. So with that, let's dive into these tips. Okay, so now for the good part, the things that are actually going to help you unclog this situation in a natural way. Number 1 is the hydration heroes, which I call the steamed vegetables. Think of things like zucchini, your squash, carrots, vegetables that absorb a lot of the moisture and liquid content from foods when you steam it, and they are packed with hydration. You can almost taste the liquid content within these foods itself when you consume them, because they're just so hydrating to the body. Think about it like a spa treatment for your intestines. This is essentially foods that are just easy to digest. They steamed, so they're much more easier on the digestive system than its raw form. So you may want to incorporate a lot of steamed foods within your digestion as you dial back on grain consumption. Try and increase the amount of steamed vegetables that you are consuming. Now, a lot of these will still have a lot of fiber content, however, they're packed with the hydration to allow things to move easily. You can even steam things like asparagus as well. They're much more easier on the digestive system when they are steamed. Let's dive into tip number 2. Number 2 is exercise. Yes, your poop needs a workout too. So this actually helps to stimulate a lot of the muscles in the intestines to help bring a lot of the blood flow into the gut area and to help get things moving along. Now, things like even doing a lot of brisk walking can actually make quite a difference in terms of getting your digestive system to start working again. Personally, I noticed doing much more vigorous forms of exercise can tend to help quite a lot in terms of helping the bowel movements to flow much more naturally. So something you may want to incorporate in your daily practice if you want to try and alleviate these symptoms of constipation as well. Number 3, and yes, I can't leave this one out because this one had quite a profound effect on my symptoms of constipation, and that is juicing. Now, no pulp, I'm just talking about pure juicing, where you're just extracting the water content. It's like supplying just that ultimate form of hydration to your body. Now, one of the juices that I found to be most effective in helping to address a lot of these constipation symptoms is actually celery juice. Now, the higher I went in dosages of celery juice, the better it was for symptoms of constipation, because it helps to address a lot of the digestive issues and it helps with the healing of the digestive system. I made a whole video on celery juicing. In fact, I think I probably made a couple of videos on celery juicing because it's that powerful in helping to address quite a lot of things that we are suffering from in today's day and age, from chronic conditions, you name it. So celery juicing I found to be really effective in helping to address these symptoms of. Now, I know with juicing generally, even if you go with some of the other vegetable juices, as long as you're cutting out a lot of the pulp, they do have some kind of effect in stimulating the digestion. However, with some of the other fruits and vegetables that we end up juicing, you may have a bit of a concern from the sugar content. However, with celery juicing, there's no real sugar content, and I found it to work quite effectively in helping stimulate the digestive system as well as elimination and regular bowel movements. Next time you're feeling backed up, you're feeling constipated, you may not need to reach out for those quick fix solutions like laxatives. You can instead start tuning into your body, start becoming more mindful, and starting to limit things like excessive amounts of grain intake, raw salads. Start hydrating like your life depends on it, because most certainly your poop's going to depend on it. As always, if you found any of this content helpful or even mildly amusing, please do hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Share it with a friend that needs that little nudge or that help to alleviate their constipation symptoms. And until next time, stay hydrated, stay moving, and stay regular, my friends. See ya.